Video games are an incredibly important thing. To some, that statement may sound silly or maybe even obvious, but I think sometimes we doubt how much a thing like a video game, a comic, or a film can really inspire and affect those that interact with it. Usually, a channel like mine is expected to dig deep into these sorts of ideas and drill into some of the creative choices of these games as either an art piece or a product. With that, some expect a level of objectivity. Yet, in many cases, there are just these pieces of art that affect one so deeply, so integrally, that you'd find it difficult to even get your love of this thing into words. It becomes even more of a trial when you try to make it concise. For me, one such game that I struggle to even explain why it's important to me sometimes is Kingdom Hearts 2. This is a game that helped me through one of the roughest times of my life. Though, if we're all being honest, I think middle school is rough on many people. But for me, I would genuinely say that it was pretty harsh on me. There's a lot more to that story, but I think it's best we hold on to some of those details until a lot later in the video. I don't want to be too heavy too soon after all, and trust me, most of the video won't be so dour. So come along with me as I talk to you about Kingdom Hearts 2, the game that saved my life. Just to get the basic info out of the way, Kingdom Hearts 2, which I'll abbreviate as KH2 for the sake of my sanity, was originally released on the PS2 March 28, 2006 in the United States. It was given an expanded edition called KH2 Final Mix that was originally a Japanese exclusive in 2007, until eventually being released on the HD 2.5 remix in the States and pretty much everywhere else. That is the version of the game I'll be talking about, as it's the only version I've ever played. Also, just a side note, a lot of the gameplay here is not my original recording. It's long play footage, just to make that clear to everyone here. OBS is being weird with me lately, so yeah, you're lucky you don't get to see any of my terrible gameplay. Anyways, the creator of the series is Tetsuya Nomura. I don't want to give you the entire spiel on the creation of the series because there's already many videos that cover that, and to be honest, I don't want to make this video longer than it already has to be. So I intend on breaking the video down like this. I'll first talk about a lot of the stuff that doesn't fit into a more hard structure like music, aesthetics, general combat, and so on. Then I'll review each world, and while I'm at it, I'll give them a ranking. I'll put up a tier list every time I do so. Also, I'll talk about the absent silhouettes for the record, because I did fight them all, so I guess I'll have to rate them too. And finally, discuss the story and why this entire game connected with me on such a deep level. I'll also try to leave chapters all down for you in the description if you just want to skip around. Doesn't bother me a bit, I get it. Oh, and I guess spoilers if you haven't already played the game. Anyways, let's get into... Hey, while I'm at it, do you mind subscribing, liking, commenting, and all that jazz? It really does help out the channel, and I spent a lot of time making this video, more than you'd probably assume. So, it'd really help out if you could leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, maybe hit the bell. I'd just appreciate it, you know? If you don't want to, hey, that's fine. If you don't, somebody will. Anyways, let's get back on track. Of course, the place that's always the easiest place to start is the gameplay. I mean, that is the main point of a video game. For starters, I think this is the best action RPG of all time. Bar none. I haven't played an action RPG with combat that feels this good and this satisfying. It balances itself well between the unga bunga smack the enemy till they hit zero and actual tactics. You will be punished for just slamming your keyblade at enemies and not expecting them to clap back. The game hands you such a variety of enemy types that you'll always be slightly tweaking your tactics with each battle you enter. Some enemies enter in invulnerable states, some will enter the ground, and others just straight up stand there and let you smack them into oblivion. A lot of gameplay is mostly built around finding ways to knock enemies into the air and keeping them there. I mean, you could still use magic, and I guess you could mostly rely on staying to the ground, but this game has this floaty feeling to a lot of the combat that it feels like it wants you to lift off with your enemies and keep them there. It feels really good when you get an enemy off the ground to just watch as their HP hits zero. Though this is what makes the enemies that literally stick to the ground so frustrating. I'm looking at you, Carheartless. You're the worst. The combat also has some extra reaction commands, also known as QTEs, that react to certain enemies. In fact, I'd say that most of the enemies I fought in the game had some sort of reaction that felt satisfying to pull off. Though these aren't quite like the rigid QTEs you'd find in a game that try to mimic a film too hard. They function more as a way to stop an enemy's attack, make it the situation favorable, or just for some straightforward crowd clearing. It's a pretty player-sided mechanic, but I'd also say it is not needed to win battles with your basic enemies. Though it is absolutely needed for some boss encounters, yet they never overtake your ability to win a fight. Basically, there's not a single boss fight in the game where it locks you out of beating a boss because you didn't press triangle to enter a cutscene. A lot of games handle their boss fights this way, especially around that kind of 7th gen era, but KH2 handles it well by just making it a part of the fight instead of making it a forced climax. Though, as you know, there's a few minor flaws or features depending on how you want to see it. The game provides you with separate abilities other than your basic attacks and magic called limits and summons. Limits, I'd say, is a mechanic that I'd use semi-often, though I wouldn't say that it was 100% necessary to win a fight. To me, it felt more like limits were there to give me a large attack with a party member if I needed a large, overwhelming attack during a situation. But usually I could handle myself well enough that I almost never used them. Some party members definitely had some better ones, such as Simba, Milan, or Tron, but others were just fine. I think there's even a few characters where I never used their limit at all. Also, is Milan's limit called Red Rocket? Ooh, I'm not gonna make that joke. As for summons, I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't use a single one throughout the whole playthrough. In fact, I almost never used summons during a playthrough of KH2. Ever. I already have so many useful and honestly better tools at my disposal during gameplay that I never needed them. Plus, in my honest opinion, they feel like they bog down the pace of some fights. Luckily, they're never long enough to where they become a chore, and they're optional. Also, seeing Chicken Little this game just feels so weird. Am I wrong for saying that? It just feels off, you know? This game completely rehauled the gummy ship levels as well. Now, in all honesty, these have never really been the main focus for me when I play my KH games. In fact, I think they're not necessary to make a good Kingdom Hearts game at all. But they are absolutely a great thing when they are included. Much like the other games, it's just a fun side activity where you can get lost in. Plus, making a bad-looking gummy ship is just really funny. Instead of the original game's gummy ship missions that play as sort of like a slower on-rail shooter like Star Fox, here they've started to take a bit more direction that is kind of closer to a chaotic bullet hell type approach, which I think is a vast improvement and fits the style of this game better. The best gummy ship levels are these fun, short treats before a main level. Some of these set pieces are incredible and feel larger than life. The best levels handle these ideas pretty well. The best levels that sort of encapsulate this whole concept are Broken Highway and the Dreadnought, respectively. If I were to make a metaphor about the appeal of these missions, they're sort of like mozzarella sticks. They're a fun appetizer that you can eat on its own and on the side of another dish, but I don't think it'd make for a great main course. But that's okay because that's not really what it's meant to be. However, the biggest and most unique gameplay element to this game is drive forms, and personally, I love this mechanic. With an asterisk. I've always been a sucker for games that give you transformation type abilities to give you extra powers. I mean, Devil May Cry has the Devil Trigger, the Jak and Daxter series has Light and Dark Jak. It's just a mechanic I find a lot of fun. And my favorite aspect of Drive is that it allows for so much player expression. Over the game, you'll unlock 5 different drive forms: Valor, Wisdom, Limit, Master, and Final. The first 3 are completely unique from one another, Valor being a straightforward boost to your combo potential, strength, and speed. Wisdom is the one I use the least, being a ranged attack and magic focused form. I've never been much of a magic focused player in this game, but it's still super useful in a ton of fights. Limit has a fun gimmick. It's a form that makes your controls and attacks closer to how they feel in KH1. revolving around using the limit commands from the first game like Strike Raid, Ars Arcanum, and more. Though, while I do think it's pretty cool, it's probably one of the weaker ones in my opinion, or at least it feels like the weakest to me. Though, I'd believe you if you told me Wisdom is a bit weaker. But it still comes in handy for some boss fights. Some bosses can't handle a sonic rave to the face. The system gets even more crazy though with the introduction of Master and Final Form respectively. Master is one of the last forms you unlock in the game, and it's pretty cool. Just the visual of Sora with these golden clothes and one keyblade floating in front of his hand is so badass. Not gonna lie, I'd say this was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. In a sense, this is Sora's first step into a stronger power. It's like his Super Saiyan form, if you will. I mean, it is yellow, but it basically mixes together the best elements of Valor and Wisdom and makes it a whole other beast, allowing you to deal out some crazy combos, crowd control, double jump. There's a lot it can do, and it's only outclassed by Final Form. Final Form outclasses every drive form in the game, bar none. Taking what Master Form does, injecting it with a massive dose of protein, a little bit of crack, and dust from the Big Bang to make an insane form. I mean, come on, look how cool this is. Sora is in all white and black, floating there as two keyblades he wields just float around him. He can glide across the screen, and he can pretty much parry whatever. You can literally parry when you jump and glide. Basically, if Master Form is Super Saiyan 1, then Final Form is Super Saiyan God, maybe even Ultra Instinct. But there is one thing that I dislike about this mechanic. This is where the asterisk I said earlier comes into mention. Anti-form. Now hold on, before you say skill issue, let me actually explain myself. Anti-form works great as a first-time trap. No, I mean it. I like when games find clever ways to stop players from cheesing them. Thus, punishing first-time players who abuse the drive mechanic with anti-form is a smart idea. For the most part. It's a form that basically has a lot of power output and nothing else. It doesn't really have much movement, and it doesn't really have any magic capability, so it works as a decent punishment. The issue with anti-form comes in when you actually have to level up the drive forms. You see, there's a sort of percentage thing that's going on in the code of the game that calculates how much you've been using drive. Thus, when you overdo it, you're forcibly changed. The only form unaffected by this is Final Form, thankfully. However, there are certain abilities that are pretty useful locked behind leveling up drive forms. For example, Dodge Roll is locked behind leveling up Limit, which is an incredibly useful ability for dodging large attacks. Yet, the more I use Limit in combat, or if I'm trying to grind out the form to get that ability, it's likely I'll get locked into anti-form, revert, run around and fight aimlessly to get my drive bar back up, and pray to Nomura himself that I don't get locked into anti-form again. I know you could just activate drive outside a battle and avoid it, but that doesn't take away from my point. It just means now that I've got to wait, activate, run in, and do it. It maybe only stalls my momentum for a couple of seconds, but eventually those seconds stack up, and I just kind of start to get a little frustrated. I still really like the idea of anti-form, but I wish there were maybe a few tweaks on how it worked. That way, I'm not punished for trying to grind a mechanic that literally wants you to grind it to acquire some necessary skills. It just feels a bit counterintuitive, but that's more in the execution than the idea itself. Now, I know I just gave a lot of criticism to the gameplay, but don't get it twisted. I still think the core of the combat in KH2 is some of the best combat I've ever experienced in any action RPG I've played. And trust me, I've played quite a few. But I think now we can move on to some other aspects of the game, such as the... I know some people really don't like Nomura's designs, and you might call me a bit crazy for saying this, but I think almost every design in this game is a banger. Before these Organization 13 cloaks were overused by the series later on, I think everyone would admit that these just looked really badass. I mean, the look was so iconic. It's sort of like a streetwear twist on the classic trope of a cloaked figure. And man, Sora and Roxas's designs? There's very few RPG pro tags that look cooler than this. Roxas having this sort of exaggerated mid-2000s skater fit going on, the black and white checker patterns looking so damn cool. Hell, I bet many of you wanted to dress just like this guy. I know I did, and kinda still do to some extent. Sora's design is also his best here. I don't think Nomura has really topped it since. Like, his OG design had this goofy, cartoony look, but the man here cooked. He basically found a way to take one of the most lighthearted designs and made it look as cool as it could feasibly be. It's like if they took Mickey Mouse and made him epic. I don't think anyone's ever done that before. And as for the FF cast, a lot of them basically keep a lot of their designs from the first game, which were already good. Except for those from FF7, which have their designs made to resemble FF7 Advent Children, which... it's a movie. Not to be too harsh, but I never liked Cloud's Advent Children design, plus his KH1 fit just looked a lot cooler. Although they brought in the trio from Final Fantasy X too as little fairies that honestly kind of make it work. Yuna was always a bit timid and fairy-like in the original FF10 and 10 too. They're like the marketable plushie versions of the characters, and it works. It's a bit weird, but it works. As for the world designs, they're great, but I'll be saving a bit more on that for the later section of the video. So to keep it brief, Kingdom Hearts doesn't usually struggle with expanding and fleshing out some of the aesthetics and visuals of the film they're adapting. Part of the fantasy of this series is being able to run around the world of Halloween Town or fly in the carpet in Aladdin and so on. It also helps for the few original worlds we get in these games. They go extra hard on making them both stand out but also integrate them into this charming mixing bowl of a series Nomura has made. But many of the worlds wouldn't be complete without their music. The music of the series is debatably one of its most iconic parts, and all that's thanks to Yoko Shimomura, who is easily a top 5 game composer. Actually, for me, they're a top 3. She didn't just do Kingdom Hearts, she's worked on all sorts of things like Super Mario RPG, Parasite Eve, Xenoblade Chronicles, the Mario and Luigi games, oh, and Street Fighter fucking 2? I mean, come on man, that's a stacked list. Shimomura has always been able to do crazy things in her soundtracks, mixing together sounds that I wouldn't even expect to hear sometimes. I know that some might think that the music would just be mostly recreating tracks from Disney movies, and not really. Sure, some tracks do appear in the game, but a lot of songs are actually original. She's somehow expertly balancing so many different ideas and themes expertly. I mean, one moment you have the warm, fuzzy feeling of lazy afternoons, and then you're having this really out there and atmospheric track like the Cavern of Remembrance, which will then contrast a song like Kyrie's theme. She's so good at weaving in all these different instrumentations and styles into one song and making it all seem so cohesive. One song that I think shows off this the best is the theme for Hollow Bastion. This is a world that was practically the final world of the first game. The original theme had these tense, melancholic chords that follow you around. But then in the second game, it's the second world you go to, being sort of a hub world much like Travis Town in previous stories. So now the pacing has changed a bit. Still having some of those more melancholic and tense chords, but now having some moments of hope and warmth breaking through that dark feeling. It tells one hell of a story and gives a new feeling from somewhere you've already been. It's like you're seeing someone you haven't met for a long time and seeing that they've changed and stayed the same in some ways. It's a beautiful track. Like I said, I already think Shimomura is one of the best composers in the entire medium of video games, and this soundtrack is just yet another case for it. But I think it's time we dig into a much larger discussion. Let's talk about... The way I'm handling this section is I'll talk about each world individually. I'll be including all the times you visit a world all at once, so instead of talking about a world, ranking it, and having to come back, I think this would just save us time. Obviously, I'll rank each world when I'm done discussing it, and as for the order of which I'll be discussing them in, it'll be based on when I first chose to play that world. So if my order doesn't exactly match one for one with your route you play, or some sort of optimized route, that's why. And with all that being said, let's start with a big world. This is the world you come back to most often, other than Hollow Bastion. This world is incredibly important to the story, and thus it's kind of impossible to talk about it without discussing elements of it. This is the starter world of the game, like Destiny Islands in the first. And I'm gonna be real, the prologue in this game is probably one of the best I've ever played. The story of Roxas really hit me hard as a kid. I'm sure it impacted many of you watching too. Just watching this boy who doesn't want any involvement with what's happening just have his world taken away from him is a painful experience. It immediately sets up the tone for this game. It's not a happy-go-lucky adventure like before. There's a much deeper, much richer core here. The actions that take place in the beginning haunt the narrative of this entire game until the very end. Look, maybe I'm giving this intro way too much credit, and maybe I'm biased because Roxas is my favorite character in the series, but for a younger me, it impacted me a ton. But again, we'll dig more into that later. It drops us immediately into all sorts of mysteries and makes us wonder at the true nature of even Sora, if we're being honest. What scheme has he been unknowingly dragged into, and was Roxas's sacrifice really justified? It creates a lot of thought-provoking ideas for us to manage. Of course, when you come back to this world a few times, it's entirely for story purposes. Again, not really a bad thing. Throughout the story, Sora is more or less unraveling the history behind a part of himself that he wasn't even aware of. You could say it's literally a story of self-discovery, but we'll save a lot of that for the thematic discussion later on. It helps that the song choices for this world help create a really soft, nostalgic, warm feeling within the player that contrasts some of the events you've already seen happen here. It's almost like a recreation of memories that we've all forgotten or have left behind. The small town feeling that could sit deeply within you. even if you've never really lived that life. My only real complaint is that there isn't really much of a reason to go back to this world outside of story reasons. Though having VV is always a good touch, FF9 doesn't get a lot of love from Squeenix these days, and that's why I'll solidly put it in the A tier for now. This is another world you return to more than twice, but I think this world is pretty much perfect. For one, this world is great for establishing and building upon the world building of the previous games. Which, yes, I do think KH has some good world building. Like I said previously, the very idea of making such an early world in this game one of the last from the previous games is a genius idea. It makes us as the player realize how much we've grown. The struggle we've had before is now not much at all. But it also shows the effects of Sora's good actions upon the world and what good it's brought to so many people. Plus, there's so many iconic moments that happen here, man. The 1000 Heartless battle is peak, maybe the best moment in the entire series. Also, Goofy fucking dies, there's a Sephiroth boss fight, it's all here, man. Though, this is the world that also has Demyx, and I mean, his boss fight is fine. To be honest, Hollow Bastion is such a good world that his yawner of a boss fight barely damages its reputation. It's still a lame boss fight though. It's not even difficult, it's just annoying. It's like 90% AoE spam and tracking. You can't even like suss it out or like try to block it properly because you just have to kind of deal with it. But it doesn't undo all the other cool stuff this world has to provide. I just love the aesthetic of this world too. It's clearly in a state of rebuilding. You can still see the scars and remains of what was once there. The place where you fought the 1000 Heartless is where the water would be in KH1. The ruins of the castle dotting the further horizon, but also seeing all the people and shops brought over from Traverse Town is a beautiful sight. It's to show that despite how bad things may get, people will still hold on and find a way to live. It's a good message to send. This world also has the benefit of featuring most of the Final Fantasy cameos. Not just the crew from the first game, but also the Gullwings from FF10-2 are here, so it has that benefit too. Hollow Bastion also grows and changes alongside you the more you come back. You see more and more of its story as it progresses. One of the best moments of the game is when Hollow Bastion finally goes back to being Radiant Garden. That is just a beautiful story about reclaiming what you thought was once lost. I'd say this world alongside Twilight Town are the emotional anchors of the story. But unlike Twilight Town, it has the added benefit of allowing for a good amount of exploration, containing the Cave of Remembrance and even some other worlds in the games. Thus, I think we can all agree, this is an easy S tier. This is one of the new Disney worlds in this game, and I think it's solid. There's a lot of fun enemies revolving around possessing objects inside the castle, which I'm pretty sure is meant to reflect how the castle staff were turned into objects due to Beast's curse. The castle also contains two really good early game boss fights, the Possessor being a fun early boss. I can't name many games where a boss is literally a door you have to unlock. And then you gotta play catch with the Heartless as it kind of floats away like a soul and you gotta beat it down. It has a lot of range, but it's not gimmicky to the point of being obnoxious. But that second boss, Shadowstalker and Darkthorn, is easily a top 5 boss in the whole game. The way it has you interacting with the environment and then using that same environment to attack you is one of the most unique bosses I've seen in any game. It also has a lot of tricks for first-time players where if you're not paying attention, it will absolutely rip through you. It's not exactly a hard boss, but it's the right amount of difficult. I do think one of the weaker elements of this world is the map itself. It's mostly just straight hallways with very little exploration. I know this is an early world, and I know it's a castle, but it doesn't really feel too cool to explore, you know? Later on, you do come back, but it's nothing really crazy. It's basically just a reason to have you fight Zaldin, who's one of the better Organization 13 boss fights in this game. A real skill check that will punish you for just blindly swinging and is actually satisfying when you realize what you have to do, unlike some later bosses. Overall, it's a solid B tier. Another one of the new Disney worlds, and this time it's Milan. First, the song of this world is just super good, just listening to it feels grand and epic, much like this time period of Chinese history. Though the story here is pretty much just the movie with some minor adjustments. The mission structure is a bit cool, giving us some moments to acclimate to the combat, and the morale system is fun, being a bit like the struggle games on Twilight Town, though it doesn't make the fights too different. Honestly, this world doesn't get much better until your second visit. We have the Heartless Swarm segment, which is really cool, some foreshadowing, but if I'ma be real, the second boss, the Storm Rider, was cool when I was a kid, but now it just kind of feels a bit clunky. I feel like getting onto that thing is more of a chore than anything special, and the first fight with Shan Yu is nothing memorable either. It's a good B tier world. Nothing more, nothing less. Honestly, this world has a bit of a bittersweet story to it. Sora is facing the fear of meeting with a friend who has completely forgotten him. Obviously, this world is meant to be analogous in a way to the events of Chain of Memories, but it doesn't do it to the point where there's no fun. All the minigames are cute, short little fun moments, and Sora riding the honeypot out of the pictures in the book and over the words is just a fun moment. It's a sweet, nice little snack of a world, like butterscotch or honey. A tier. Off-rip, Hercules, Huncules, is my favorite Disney movie, period. Not much gets close. But trust me, when I say that I think this is one of the best worlds in the game, it's not just out of my bias for this movie. For one, this is one of the only returning worlds from KH1 and expands that world greatly. The first game was just a Coliseum and not much else. Not that that's a bad thing, but it felt a bit small. Here though, you get to explore the underworld. Also, the way they incorporate the two central characters of this world, Hercules and Orin, is very interesting. Hercules is the current hero and is in a bit of a slump. When you first visit, he's overworking himself and that's putting a lot of strain on him. He's getting too deep into the idea of being a hero and not allowing himself any room for mistakes, which leads into a depression once you return. It genuinely feels nice to help Herc get his groove back. In contrast, Orin is a man who's been brought back from the dead and has already done all the hero work. He's finally ready to live his story, to make his own moves, even if Hades will try to stop him. They're both trapped, but in two completely different ways. That's why, when they finally do clash on the return, it makes for a great moment. It also helps that this world, not counting the Coliseum, has 4 boss fights. You gotta fight Cerberus, who's a pretty easy early fight, then Pete, who isn't too bad, then you gotta... Yeah, you gotta do that. But this is one of my favorite bosses in the game. It just feels so massive when you finish it off. You feel, well, like a hero. And then on return, you gotta face Hades and the Coliseum reopens. Look, this Coliseum is a vast improvement on the first, and the combat trials are actually fun and rewarding. So for just having so much content here all at once, it's easily an S-tier world. To me, both of these worlds kind of work as a package deal since they're both so short and they are directly connected to one another. Plus, you only visit either of these worlds once, so I kind of see them as one cohesive world instead of 2 separate ones. Call it weird, I guess, argue with the wall, that's just how I see it. The one major blemish on this world is that it introduces my least favorite enemy, Hot Rod. That bastard car. I hate this little chud. You can't juggle him, he gets a ton of armor frames, he just covers the whole battlefield. It sucks. I hate this thing. Yeah, you can hit him with magic, sure, but that doesn't stop him from being a menace when the game is spawning them in duos and trios. I just hate that little creature. I want to slash his tires. But on the other hand, there is an appeal of being able to visit Disney Castle. I don't think we ever got to visit it in KH1, so it's a great little world building moment here. The little minigame where you escort Queen Minnie is fine, you just kind of have to mash triangle. It's cool, I guess, but I wouldn't really say I'd go out of my way to do it again. The real meat and potatoes is when you time travel and end up in Timeless River, a world that was built to be like the classical shorts of the early years of Disney. But if I may, mild nitpick here, the audio here is bit crushed. It's not exactly filtered like the way an old film would sound. It's more digital than sounding fuzzy, if you get what I mean. Doesn't ruin the world at all. This was a PS2 game, so that's probably the best they could manage. But it's still something that my sound design ears have noticed. It doesn't ruin it all, though, just something I noticed. I also love the beat where you have to beat the crap out of past Pete. Like, is this the reason he has beef with us now? I know it's not, but you gotta admit the concept of that is really funny, and it's clearly played up for laughs. It's also, though, a really great moment of reflection for Pete, the current Pete, as a character, wanting to go back to his past and escape the present. It makes us see Pete as a sort of guy that gets in way over his head. The little segments that you have to go to help Mickey defeat the Heartless are fun too, each one being a loving homage to a classic Michael Mouse short, including a boss fight using the steamboat from the iconic short Steamboat William, or, as it is known in French, Le Pousse Enflé. Overall, this is a fun world, but I get why we only visit it once. Still makes it pretty cool though. Doesn't really affect the overall narrative of anything, but not all worlds do, so I don't care. This package deal 2-part world is a pretty good B tier. Real talk, I love the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. I loved it as a kid, and I still love it now. So even with the bias I'm coming into this world with, it's alright, I guess. Honestly, when I first played it and when I played it now, it's kind of a letdown. For one, James Arnold Taylor is a phenomenal voice actor. He has given us countless iconic performances. Titus in FF10, yes, it's Titus. He played Ratchet for almost all the Ratchet and Clank games. his illustrious work as the sexiest man of the stars, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But man, his Jack Sparrow impression just always makes me laugh. He never sounds like he's drunk like in the films, but he instead sounds sleepy. He sounds like he hotboxed the car outside, came 45 minutes late to class every day, and then just fell asleep. No, I didn't do that. I've never smoked. One of my project partners in high school did, though. You're welcome for that A, by the way. I just want to make that clear. The story of this world is literally just the movie with all the Kingdom Hearts characters added in, and like Mulan, it doesn't really feel like they really add anything to the story. Though, on the second visit, they do a better job of including them, bringing in Organization 13 to become a problem in the story. I do like the whole moonlight mechanic for the pirates, but sometimes it's more of a hindrance on the combat than an interesting element. Luckily, they never put you in too many situations where it becomes an actual obnoxious problem, so I wouldn't say that it's outright bad. As for the bosses, the Captain Barbossa fight is fine. The darkness mechanic is actually pretty cool until you realize you just find the Heartless, smack him up, and pray Barbossa doesn't feel like firing all his artillery. I actually think the boss fight on the return trip is much better. I know a lot of people maybe don't like this one, but I kind of think it's kind of cool. You use the coins for the Aztec chest and the chest itself and a mechanic to fight the Heartless, kind of using magic to hit it and then make sure the coins drop out to put it back in there. Though, by the end of the fight, it does start to use a lot of unblockable spam, and that was a little annoying, but overall, I actually think it's one of the more interesting gimmick bosses of the whole game. Overall, though, this world's a C tier. What do you want me to say? That this world is somehow secretly goated? That I like this world? Look, normally I try to find my opinion for myself outside the influence of others, but man, everyone's right. This world sucks. It sucked when I first played it, it's not fun now, and it probably won't ever be. The idea of a rhythm game world is actually not a bad one, but here it's so monotonous. It is literally the simplest, babyfied, lobotomized rhythm game you can make. On the bright side, it'd make for a really good CIA torture method, but if you're playing this world and expecting anything good, don't come here. In fact, I would say avoid it, if you can. F tier. Ah yes, the Henry Selick classic The Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh, and Tim Burton's here too, I guess. I kid, it's Burton's movie just as much as it is Selick's. Honestly, I was never the biggest fan of this movie. Not to say that it's bad at all, I just think both men have made much better films in claymation, Frankenweenie and Coraline. But it's still a holiday classic. I'd just rather watch Home Alone or Charlie Brown instead, you know what I mean? As for this world, it does what Olympus Coliseum does as well and actually expands the world, allowing us to explore both Halloween Town and Christmas Town, as well as providing some good character moments for Sora, making moments of him reflecting on where he's been and having him reminisce about the people he misses. Plus, the Doctor's Experiment boss fight is really good, the way it breaks apart and reforms. You could even use its broken parts against it. The Oogie Boogie fight is fun too, and also you get to trap children in little boxes. It also mixes Sora, Donald, and Goofy into the mix pretty well, which, little side note, why do they always say it like that? Why do they always say Sora, Donald, Goofy? It's weird, right? Am I the only one that finds that weird? But yeah, this is one of the strongest worlds in the game. It has some great unique Heartless designs, and it has all the strengths of Olympus Coliseum. S tier. I never liked Tron. The ideas are cool and stuff, but the movies were never too interesting. I haven't seen that new one, and I don't plan to because Jared Leto is a cancer on film. But that Daft Punk soundtrack in Tron Legacy, though, is amazing. Don't get it twisted. I always thought Tron would make for a much more engaging video game than a film. And then they decided to put Tron in KH2. Wait a minute. That's a video game! I think this world's pretty cool. Tron has always had a great aesthetic, even the original, and the designers definitely made sure to keep it looking similar but fresh for the modern age. The way they cut back and forth between reality and the grid is a nice added touch, plus the light cycle minigame is actually pretty fun once you get the hang of it. The enemies also have pretty cool designs, but I'm also a big sucker for digital and cyberpunk aesthetics, so maybe keep that in mind when I say that. Also, the MCP boss fight is one of the best in the game. The way they have you juggle two separate enemies is fun. Though it wasn't a challenge because I think I was a bit over-leveled when I did it. The first boss is okay, the laser spam is a bit annoying, it's not really a run killer. Honestly, if you just want to use your limit with Tron to beat him up, go right ahead, it's pretty much broken in that fight. The story also incorporates the trio well into the narrative, making them the needle pushers just as much as Tron is. It's what I like out of a Kingdom Hearts world story. This level just provides a cool variety, has a fun look, and made me actually enjoy something Tron related. I think it's a pretty good A tier. The first thing that's odd about this world is that maybe I'm tweaking, but is this an adaptation of the direct-to-VHS sequel Aladdin 2: Return of Jafar? I think I saw that movie like twice as a kid, but I was surprised they'd even ever do this. I think Disney would rather forget all those direct-to-DVD and VHS sequels. Some were good though. Lion King 1.5 is actually a really good film. To be honest, maybe it's just me, but this world feels smaller in this game. There is that new area you visit on Return, but it's not much. There's also a magic carpet section, and I'm just gonna be honest here, it controls awfully. It's way too slippery for my liking, and I get you're on a carpet that flies, so it might be a little bit unwieldy, but it doesn't have to feel like I'm on a slip and slide the entire time. Outside of that, it's really just exploring the same areas from KH1 despite the one area you get to, but they feel so much more condensed. And while I usually don't mind that, I think other worlds benefit from having a more condensed design, here it just feels cramped. The first boss of this world, Volcano and Blizzard Lord, are just okay. I really like duo bosses in my games. Agni and Rudra is one of my favorite bosses in Devil May Cry, and Twin Rova is probably my favorite Zelda boss ever. Yet here they feel so lame. There just isn't much interaction between you, the player, and the boss. And then we get to Jafar. I'ma just be real, he's the worst boss in the game. He's not even hard, he's just boring. You literally can just float there and whack him until he's dead, and then you have to get stunned, he doesn't hit you, you continue. Of course, if you get unlucky and get stuck in his weird dimension where he throws buildings at you, then you'll just have to wait even longer. I don't even fully understand what you're supposed to do here besides dodge what he throws at you. Ironically, there is a boss in the later game that does this, and it's much better. Hell, I'd rather fight Jafar in KH1. And that boss is lame too, but at least he's got something there. It's nice that you do get that hidden Heartless there that's great for grinding out your drive forms. The music's also good too, and the Cave of Wonders does have some fun bits, though the fire-spitting large Heartless can be frustrating because he turns incredibly fast, and once you're hit by that fire, you're just stuck and you gotta deal with it. Overall, I'd say it's a C-tier world. Another new world, and this time, we're a lion. The attention to detail in this world is second to none. Overall, this game does a really good job at adapting aesthetics and visuals from each Disney film they touch on, but this one's probably the best. I'd even go as far to say that it does much better than the Tron world. They even redesigned the chest to have a different design to make it fit the setting. I love that they didn't just make everyone a lion, but instead Goofy is a tortoise and Donald as a bird that looks similar to Zazu. Also, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is intentional, but Lion Pete is really ugly and that's hilarious. They also tweak the movement a lot in this level because now you're on all fours and it doesn't feel bad at all. It is different, but different good, not different bad. You can drift and dash and do a lot of different movement in this game. It's kind of embarrassing for Agrabah in hindsight because the lion control is far better than the flying carpet. The only thing that I'd say that holds this world back from an S tier is that the boss fights are kind of meh. Not bad, but I wouldn't want to go back and fight them. The Ground Shaker is absolutely impressive, having you get onto the back of this behemoth, giving some Shadow the Colossus type feelings, but it's nowhere near as great as most bosses in this game. Then there's also the Hyena boss fight, and this one sucks pretty bad. It's one of the worst in the game. Not as bad as Jafar and another one I'll mention later, but it's still just bad. They can easily escape air combos, they just run. It's not even a challenge, just boring, it's just a little bit annoying, you know? You can use Magnet to make the fight a lot more reasonable, but it doesn't stop it from just being below bland. The Scar boss fight is, again, it's a pretty typical boss for the game. Desperation moves, big swings, and so on. It's not exactly pushing the needle. Though, still, everything else in this world makes it a great world. It's got a few meh to bad boss fights that keep it out of the upper echelon for me, though. Thus, it's an A tier. And thus, we now make it to the final world of the game. Well, wait, I actually do have one more thing to talk about here, just before we get to the end. The Absent Silhouettes. I guess you can consider them secret bosses? Though they're not exactly hidden, their emblems float there for you to interact with whenever you want, and this is an interesting lore bit because these are actually all the Organization 13 members that you killed in Chain of Memories. But now you actually get to fight them without having to use card game mechanics. Not that that's a bad thing, I actually think that stuff's kinda cool, but whatever. Starting with the first one I fought, Zexion. I found his fight to be overall pretty fun actually. His gimmick is a bit weird, but it's not bad. I like the books and how they all come out to attack you. Trapping you inside the book is a fair punishment for not using your brain during the fight. It can be a little bit annoying when you can't find the book he's in while you fight, but I don't think it stalls the fight to the point where it just becomes bad. I'd say this fight is a B tier. Next up is Vexen, and he also has a gimmick. Actually, I think all these bosses have a gimmick but one. His main mechanic being the data gauge, and having this circle that if you sit in it for too long, it creates clones of you if you just sit there. It's not a bad fight, and if you're properly leveled for it, it can be a breeze. Though the clones can be frustrating because they can knock you out of a combo on Vexen. However, the clones being made are completely on you for not avoiding the obvious moving circle on the ground. This boss is fine. It's not really anything terrible, it's not really anything great. It's a C tier. Then we have Larxene, and this is a boss that I don't think has any apparent gimmick. Instead, she just swarms you with attacks. It's pretty hard to get any amount of combo going on her because she'll just swarm your ass with shadow clones that she produces. It's an okay challenge. I wouldn't say I was outright annoyed or bored, but I do think the swarms of clones that juggle you are a bit cheap, though you could basically destroy her by using Reflect and basically make the fight a cakewalk. But I've also always held the opinion that being able to cheese a fight doesn't inherently make it a better battle. Maybe this is controversial, but I'm gonna give this a D tier. I didn't really like it. After that is Lexaeus. I really like the power level mechanic. The way he builds and builds and builds throughout the fight, but also having moments to stop him if you're actually paying attention is really fun and keeps you on your toes. I wouldn't say it's a top 5 boss fight in the game, but I'm not saying it's bad by any means. I would say this one is the easiest out of the 5, but that doesn't make it any less difficult than some of the ones before, though it's definitely way easier than the one after it. You can understand the rules of the battle fine enough. It doesn't really find ways to screw with you in ways that just feel unfair. So for me, it's a B tier. And finally, we have Marluxia. I have opinions on this one. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas going on in this fight, but I really don't care for the execution. I do really like the Doom mechanic where your level becomes the amount of times you could get hit before you die. The idea that your HP won't be targeted, but instead you have to interact with Marluxia in a completely different kind of battle is a really cool idea. My problem, like I said, comes down to execution because, well, the way you have to beat this boss is just kind of lame. And this isn't like how you could just use Reflect to completely destroy Larxene, which I'm pretty sure you can also do in Marluxia because Reflect is kind of busted. It's more so the way you have to beat the boss is by waiting, attacking, and repeat. You can't really do much else. You can't even air launch the guy and air combo him because you'll be punished heavily for using the air combo. Mind you, that's like the main component of the combat is to air combo people. Then he creates these massive circles that will affect your health bar and kill you in 3 hits. So now you just gotta sit in a corner, block, wait and hit him even less, because if you go too far, you die. He also has armor in a lot of his attacks, and not even drive can affect this. Before any of you start spamming skill issue and spit up the formula your mom gave you, this boss fight isn't even the hardest in the game. It's just a boss fight that bores and frustrates me because I think there could be much more interaction to this fight. Instead though, you just block 1 2 3 1 2 3, block 1 2 3 1 2 3. That's it. It's not really interesting, guys. There's nothing unique going on here. I don't even hate bosses that make you parry and react. Virgil in Devil May Cry 3 makes you wait patiently. Basically, almost all the bosses in Sekiro were built on this formula, and that game's great. Gwyn, Lord of Cinder in Dark Souls is another one where you actually have to be patient and let him swing. Actually, a lot of the Dark Souls bosses are like that, and most Dark Souls bosses are pretty good. These are all bosses that reward you for your patience and are still fun. A lot of Devil May Cry references in this video, that's weird. But I think that's enough on that. Up on screen is the tier list of all the absent silhouettes, but I think it's finally dive into the final world. This is my favorite final world in the entire series. Everything from the story being tied up here to the aesthetics are... it's magnifique, man. It's chef's kiss. I love this visual of this abandoned, empty city only illuminated by the streetlights and neon signs dotting the landscape. The Heartless appearing from shadow and attacking from all angles. It's this perfect antithesis to Twilight Town. This small, warm town illuminated by the nearing sunset, contrasted with this massive, unknowable city marked in shadow. It helps that this world has some of the best boss fights in the entire game. For starters, the Roxas fight is a beautiful moment of storytelling, bringing together and answering one of the themes introduced from the prologue. The fight inside the heart and the music being so forlorn, creating this perfect atmosphere. It literally feels like you're fighting yourself, which is a trope that I like, but it's handled perfectly here. Then you start to see this otherworldly castle hanging in the sky over you. The insides being this stark white and gray. It feels as if it's created from nothing, to make you feel this suffocating sense of nothingness. I'd even go as far to say that this castle's design is nihilistic. Maybe that's weird, but I feel like a lot of the Organization 13 members, especially the higher-ups like Xemnas and Xigbar, have the sense of nothing matters, a sort of existential nihilism. It's incredible environmental storytelling. And like I said earlier, a lot of the best bosses of this game happen right here, in this very castle. I guess you could argue it's a bit of a boss rush, kind of. I've never really been a fan of mandatory boss rushes in any game, but here every boss you fight is one you've never met before, so it's not an issue with me. You first take on Xigbar, and I really enjoy this fight. It's definitely a challenge, and he will kill you as he warps around and shoots you at the worst times possible, but I never feel like you're trapped in a one-track method. You can either fight him head-on or take a reactive approach to take him down. Definitely one of my favorite fights. Then you take on Luxord, who is one of the best fights in this game. His gimmick relies on this time gauge as well as turning you into a die or a card. However, you can avoid being turned into things if you just pay attention. It's not like a super difficult fight, but it's one of the best gimmick fights in the whole game. Maybe even the best gimmick fight? I don't know. After that, you take on Sykes. I think that's how you pronounce it. And his fight is fine. It's pretty easy as long as you just use the Berserk command. Honestly, you could wipe the floor with him by just using Master or Final Form. It's a middling fight, but it's also not a slog, so I'm fine with it. Of course, this whole thing culminates with Xemnas, the final boss. I'm just gonna be real, this might be my favorite final boss in any game, period. Sure, it's a long boss with many phases, but I feel like they never overstay their welcome. The first phase where you fight him alone and climb that building to face off is super cool. He has a lot of attacks that cover a gap, but you're rewarded for blocking it well or just dodging altogether. And then you have to float through space and get onto the dragon castle spaceship thing is such a cool set piece, and slamming the buildings into it is one of the most invigorating reaction commands of the whole game. There's even a small ship section where your goal is to destroy the beast before taking him on one last time. It really feels like a battle of desperation, especially when you're taken into the void and Xemnas starts monologuing about how nothing goes on forever, giving you this sense that you're fighting a power much grander than you. Like this unearthly concept has manifested itself as Xemnas and you have to destroy that idea at its very root. It's a beautiful boss fight that shows so much story all compacted into one long boss fight. And here is where I think is finally a good moment to discuss the themes of the story, as well as how it affected me personally. After all, we finally talked about all there is in the game, from the bosses, music, worlds, aesthetics. All you have to ask is, what does this all mean? Well, like many stories, I think KH2 is about many different ideas that all interconnect with each other. The first theme that comes to mind is identity and growing up. At the start of the game, we find Roxas living in this Data Twilight town, a copy. Yet throughout it, he's given dreams and memories of Sora's past, which are in many ways his past too. He tries and tries to reject it. In a sense, it feels like he wants to stay in this place forever, in a town that's stuck at this perfect sunset. Those last moments of summer vacation stretching on forever. But as he said, summer vacation is over. And sometimes, when you change, another version of you walks out that door. Someone you might not even recognize. After this, Sora's journey is clouded by the attempts of Organization 13 to manipulate and control him, always referring to him as Roxas, which confuses him. He doesn't recognize that name or identity, and in many ways, it's sort of like being remembered as someone that you aren't, or at least aren't anymore. Yet you always encounter those that see you for what you were instead of what you are. That's why the Sora and Roxas boss fight is such a thematic climax. These two histories and identities within himself clash. Sora, and by extension Roxas, changed even if unintended. A lot of the time as you grow up and change, sometimes you reflect and that older self can come back out. It's not inherently a bad thing, but it can also create conflict. In the moment where Roxas and Naminé meet one more time, as Sora and Kairi meet, is when this all culminates and places itself down firmly. The two speaking and accepting that this is who they are now. Sora and Roxas, while maybe two different people, are also in many ways the same person. Much like people in the real world. I am not who I was when I was 16 or 13 or 10 or 7. Somewhere, that version of me is within me. Riku puts it the best. Don't worry. You're all still you. And that's true. Sure, Roxas is a part of Sora, but that doesn't change who either of them are. In a way, we're all many versions of ourselves throughout life, but we're also still us. It's a beautiful contradiction that we all exist in. Of course, most people would pick up on themes of love and friendship, yet it handles these themes from a much more interesting and optimistic perspective. Kingdom Hearts isn't just a simple story of the power of friendship. Instead, it takes time to explore how these bonds affect you and make you who you are. The entire game, Sora is searching for his friends, Riku and Kairi, and when he finally finds them, he starts to break down in raw emotion. The characters are their best selves when embracing each other and lifting each other up. The final battle exemplifies this the best. Sora and Riku fight together to take down Xemnas, while Xemnas holds on to a lonely ideal, only to be wiped away when they, together, defeat him. Sora and Riku carrying each other after their injuries out of this world. You could even see this in moments of the prologue, where the only way Roxas is able to break out of the frozen program is by chanting his friends' names, using the memories and care for them as fuel to break him out of the stopped position. Though we also see how sometimes holding on to these things too desperately can create harm, such as with Axel. This also ties into the previous theme I discussed. Axel couldn't fully let go of Roxas and allow him to be Sora, making him an antagonist that only ended up with him harmed in the end. The only moment where he could accept it is when he gave up his life for someone he cared for, that emotion being felt in Sora himself. Another major theme that is tackled in KH2 is one of nihilism, or specifically fighting this feeling that nothing matters. Many members of Organization 13, and really many of the heroic characters, speak on how nobodies can feel nothing and are not meant to exist. Xemnas, the main villain of the game, is a main proponent of this mindset, spouting about how nothingness can go on forever and so on. There are many moments where Sora questions just why he's even doing this, such as when he learns that the organization benefits directly from him slaying the Heartless, making him question why he even continues. Yet, he continues anyway, because he is the only one who could stop others from getting hurt. In the last moments of the game, Sora and Riku almost slip into this dangerous mindset of letting themselves go, allowing themselves to be stuck in the realm of darkness shown at the beginning of the game. It feels like they've done all that they can, like they're not needed anymore, that they can resign themselves to being here forever. Yet they're proven wrong when a message in a bottle appears to them in the water and gives them a door to the world of light, a way back home, showing that there is always another way, that you could push through, and that there is always one more chapter just waiting for you. All these ideas, all these worlds, these characters, they affected me deeply. To be completely honest here for a moment, I got this game at the perfect time. Middle school was an incredibly rough time in my life, especially during that frame of time from 6th to 7th grade. I had moved away from the place I lived in the summer of 5th grade, but then came back later in the semester of 6th grade. It was a chaotic time, and I don't really want to get into it that much. I was in a strange state. I was a short, physically disabled 13-year-old who wore leg braces and was far shorter than everyone else. I didn't really have many friends, and I was depressed. And I mean really depressed. I struggled to get out of my bed some days, and while I put on a smile to make sure no one else knew, I was in pain. My body hurt, my head hurt, my grades are slipping from my usual A and B's to D's, C's, and occasionally F's. I had a lot of thoughts about what the hell I was even doing, if it was even worth it at all. I just felt like a burden on everyone else I knew. I felt like I was draining money because of all of the doctor trips I had to go to. I felt like an annoying person who nobody wanted to interact with. And I just felt wrong in general. But one year, there was one thing I wanted, that I wanted more than anything. The Kingdom Hearts 2.5 collection on PS3. So when I finally got this game, it was something to look forward to every day. Every day I'd get home and beat a world or two. It was something that helped me through. It was a friend. It wasn't the only thing that I had to help me out, but it helped a ton. It was like the game knew what I was going through, watching Roxas' sacrifice, seeing Sora help others, experiencing Sora and Riku make it out of the realm of darkness. It allowed me to explore my own emotions and pulled me through. I'll be honest, it's one of the few video game endings that gets me teary-eyed. Maybe because of what I was feeling at the time, or maybe because I still feel it now. I've been sitting on making this video for a while because I was scared. To me, this game is a sacred memory of sorts. So replaying it and putting my thoughts out there felt like something that could probably hurt. I didn't want to ruin that beautiful memory for myself. To keep some of myself in Twilight Town, Radiant Garden, and all the other worlds. But I believe in confronting your past, and I was rewarded for doing it. Sure, I'm not gonna say this is a perfect piece of art, nothing ever is. But to me, this is pretty close to perfection as you could get. In a few ways, this game did save my life. I guess all there is to say is, thank you to everyone who worked on this game. I sincerely mean it. You touched my heart in ways you probably could never imagine. Thank you. And yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. Sorry for getting a little heavy at the end there, but that's just my honest story with this game, and all that's true. I would really wanted to do this video for a while, and I finally was able to do it with some free time. I hope you enjoy the video. Leave a comment down below, subscribe, like, all that stuff. Stuff you have to say as a YouTuber. With all that being said, I'll see you next time.